The video you're watching will make humorous references to Napster, Metallica, lawyers, the recording industry of America, or whatever they call themselves, and the MPAA, and etc., because I'm angry today about something that I shouldn't have to deal with. And now you get to watch a video where I'm yelling about something. Okay, the video will be about audio levels and noise sources in Windows 7 64-bit, specifically while running Cam Studio 2 Portable specifically. This will apply to generally not just any software you're using on Windows 7 64-bit, but many or all versions of Windows, depending on what software and hardware you're using, and also, oddly enough, to Mac OS and even Linux. And this is by design, and it's bad, and it's anti-consumer, and more importantly, it's anti-user, because it may be the reason you're being driven crazy by noise sources on your computer. We'll get to Cam Studio settings injecting noise as well. That's software. We could also have ancillary software. I'm using Mozilla Firefox as an example of something that can technically make noise, because we could be playing a YouTube video here, for instance, instead of uploading, or using a video game. The reason being, this is simplified and I can keep control over it more. We're also going to talk about the operating system making noises itself, deliberately injecting noises to interfere with our recordings for DMCA copyright reasons, and the physical system, and some mythology. We're going to cover the most important thing first to save you time. I'm hovering over the volume control option here, where it normally has a volume control like that, or maybe more complicated. I go into recording devices by right-clicking it, and hopefully on your system you have the equivalent to recording devices. In this, it has three of those things that were down here. Recording devices, playback, and sounds. It's missing over here the communications, and we don't have the volume mixer or volume control options on here, even though that all could be one app and should be. In communications, the first excuse mode is that if it detects somehow that we're doing a computer-based phone call or something phone call-like, again I said excuses, Windows could detect this communications activity and either mute every other sound other than what we're doing so that we can have a conversation in peace and quiet, reduce the volume of other sounds by 80% or 50%, or sit there and do nothing. It could also conceivably contain utilities, depending on your install, to reduce noise, act like a Dolby noise reducer, or just inject noise. It could add noise to the recording, because this is an excuse for the operating system to, quote, make a decision. If you let your computer automatically make a decision, or you allow it to agree to it making a decision on what should happen on your computer, you are letting your situation be controlled by whoever wrote that program. And the answer I give is no. Even though this is a practical piece of information in software and coding for doing certain things, I'm not doing this thing on a regular basis, or in my case, ever, and it is an excuse to inject noise, because it does. It has. Sounds. Windows has, for some reason, a plethora of attempts at injecting noise. You call them sound effects. I said no sounds, and when I did that, it enabled the sound. It enabled several of them, even though no sounds was selected. Again, the operating system is explicitly ignoring a preference. What I did is I disabled all the sounds, found out where the fuckers were located, and erased every damn one of them and replaced them with a text file with a 0 length to it, renamed the sound file name. Again, I'm not being paranoid, I'm just tired of fighting Windows. Recording. This is where you would think most of the noise sources come in. Here's my microphone. Even though you can probably hear my cooling fan screaming sometimes, you may have noticed that there isn't supposed to be, at this point, a hissing noise. Here's the playback. These, you would assume, would be the volume controls for output. How the hell could this possibly create noise? Now, if I click on them, most of them you'll see have no options available. We'll be changing that in a minute. The speaker and headphone option is actually two separate ones. One is for the speaker outputs, literally speakers that are built into your laptop or in a computer if it has it, or a speaker cable. And then the other one is for the headphone connector, which can also be, quote-unquote, communications headphones, where it has a microphone built in. Yeah. And you notice that's three things, but there's only two options. In my sound system on my computer here, the driver lets me split them, so I'd have a headphone output, a headphone with microphone output, and speakers, or it would just say headphones and speakers separate, and it would assume it was the communications headphones. These are more like a profile for the volume control. The reason for this one being combined for speakers and headphones is on a lot of systems, when you plug in the headphones, it physically unplugs or disconnects the speakers. My computer isn't like that. I can run audio through the speakers while I'm wearing headphones hearing a completely different audio recording or source. Yes, that would be annoying. That's why they're normally combined. The next thing is communication headphones may need a separate profile for the audio. Next thing is, the reason this might be important to you, in my case, this is actually the same connector, is if you plug in a set of headphones with a microphone, the metal strap for grounding out the speakers, for providing ground, can be split into a fourth strap, which carries the microphone data. And obviously, if you plug in standard headphones that have that as one big ground surface, it would physically short out the little microphone that comes with communication headphones. You'll notice it has an option also to allow something to take complete control over this speaker or headphone output and enable audio enhancements. Extra signal processing by your audio device also means excuse to inject noise, and this would be real noise accidentally injected or Windows deciding to. I've disabled it even though it's not needed. This is also for, let's say, you wanting to modify the audio so you have more bass. I mean, you maybe don't disable this unless you need to. The levels are set right in the middle for the headphone and or headphone communications hookup, and general is just whatever it says. Here's the other ones. The level is about in the middle. It's actually lower. It's a different volume level. Advanced is don't allow complete control over it, and enable audio enhancements have been disabled. Depending on what's going on with your computer, you may need to change one of these. And then general. Now we're going to enable the missing ones here, but in recording devices, I'm going to show you what I normally have. We'll start with the one that's actually doing something. Allow applications to take exclusive control and give exclusive mode applications priority, meaning it won't be backburnered. Effects, none. Levels, whatever it needs to be. I've turned off listening to it, but you can do that to test whether or not it's producing noise, or it's the actual source for it. And then, of course, the label. This is stereo mix. This is the actual system, virtual or real, that Windows addresses to mix all these sources together. It's literally the mixer. And again, settings, allow applications complete control, levels, listen, yada yada. They're all about the same. Cable output is a virtual device that allows me to connect sources back and forth to each other, trying to do some sort of patchwork at one point. Headset mic is actually a copy from this one. This is the microphone control from your Boom headphone. Normally. Again, exclusive control, levels turned off because I don't want a noise source, and listen is disabled. Now we're going to close that and go down here, and we're going to mess with volume control options. If we mess with volume control options, we're not allowed to open volume mixer. We can say only give us volume control on anything that shows sound sources, or default communication device only, or I can enable them manually. Now I'm enabling 4 of them, and again, here's a virtual cable hookup to the speakers, or whatever. Here's our headphone Boom, headphone mic, speaker and headphone, and this one is for an external display. Hit OK, and if I hit the microphone button, now we have 3 of the 4 items. One of them isn't plugged in at all, and you may have noticed we have kind of a difference here. Again, we look at it, and we see the thing I haven't plugged in, and then the 3 of them. All right. Now, what happens if we go here and look at Open Volume Mixer? Okay, now we have a couple of them showing up, but now we have 2 software utilities that can provide audio. The program I'm using to record on the screen technically can make sound, but I haven't done it with that. But it has a volume control item just because it should. Firefox is representing our game we're recording. We're playing PewDiePie today. And I'm using it as an example of a utility, again, or program that can put out sound that I might want to record. System sounds is doinks, bings, bangs, and splats from the computer, but it's also that mixer. And again, that mixer isn't necessarily available. Again, to interfere with you and I being able to steal audio recordings by recording them, I'm presuming, from an old tape, because people totally do that, I guess. The system sounds and mixer are not necessarily available. The mixer may be disabled, and it is done for digital rights management purposes. And then finally, the general volume we were using. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off all the extras again for quote-unquote volume control. And again, we could have it auto-select. Again, that's an excuse. Or we could have it use a default communication device. And remember, according to it, communication device might really not be what we want. It might be for an audio connection to a modem that could be a noise source. Now, one of the things you might think of is to say, okay, this one's here. We could set it default. We could also disable it. We could also set it default device or default communications device. This one's already set to default, but we could set it to one or the other. We need to check to see if any of these have been set to communication device, because that's a different class of input. Now, I can also disable each of these one at a time, including the microphone I'm using right now if I wanted to. And the special setting for headset mic for setting speech recognition could also inject noise, because it may auto-compensate the audio and may overcompensate and make noise. These and other informations that I'm giving you are so that you can try to track down the noise source so it won't go away. And remember, Windows can make noise. Communication devices, or the idea of them, can make noise. The recording devices, or preventing you from recording stuff devices, could also have that effect. And it could be quote-unquote output devices creating noise, again, as an excuse, or maybe some real problems. In this case, I have a software audio output capability here that loops back. It could have been a source of noise. And again, I can test or disable these as well. And I can hit configure and maybe dig up even more options. This and many reasons are the reason you may be hearing audio hiss when you're trying to record something on your computer. You'll have to dig them out. You may have to install new drivers to gain access to the things so you can separate things, such as the playback of speakers and headphones might need to be separated because it might include the boom mic in what would be headphone settings. And again, some of these are simply profiles for the same thing, like the communications setting. And again, some of these can be enabled as a communications device rather than being just a default device. For this and many other reasons, I pulled my hair out today because I had a noise source injected. This one was the most suspicious. And yes, I can disable it because, again, it can technically input. So that's what I've been able to give you about the operating system, Windows 7 64-bit. I'm going to briefly cover Cam Studio. The software you're using to record should not be ignored. It may have been the first thing you went for. In my case, for audio options, and this is a stupid thing, I have to select mic input to test and check to find my inputs because I can select the others. They would be listed here if I enabled them. If I select, with this program, it has a quirk. If I say options for speakers, it will crash instead of letting me pick something, which would normally be where I would look for the noise source. I'm covering that briefly because that's Cam Studio specific. This has been mostly about your operating system, noise sources, the lawyers that meddled with it, and the operating system manufacturers like Apple, Microsoft, and even Linux that enable them to do so. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. I hope this has given you at least an idea of where to look to try to ferret out what's making the noise. Good day.